Internet, hello you lovelies. It is that time of the year. It is one of my favorite times of the year. It is the best of time of the year. I love doing the amount of movies per year, so it is 2024. These are my top 24 movies of 2024. I saw 187 movies this year, so this represents about the top 10%. Gonna be breaking up this into two videos. This is gonna be 24 through 11, and then a top 10 of the year for folks that only want a top 10. That's gonna be the next video that hopefully drops in a few hours or tomorrow. So this represents a lot of the movies that I think are solid B pluses. They're very, very worth watching, but for whatever reason didn't clear my top 10. But before we get into those, if you're new to this page, please hit that subscription bell. We have cleared 40,000 subscribers, and I am oh so very honored on this road to 50K. I talk about comic books, I talk about movies, I talk about TV. I love reviewing movies. I love discussing them because of the community it brings. So please leave a comment below. Let me know what some of your favorite movies this year were. Let me know if you agree with this 24 through 11. Let me know if you think I missed anything. But be civil as best you can while you're wilding out in the internet. I also love covering comic books. I read about 50 to 70 comics a week, so if you're into that, also hit that subscription bell, and please, 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 please be nice to fellow comic book fans. It is spicy in these internet streets. Fandom has gotten vitriolic, so even making a best of list, these are just my personal favorites. This is my experience, my opinion. I'm 36. The road that led to this is 36 years of unique experience that only I lived through, that made me feel this way about these movies. So other people have lived X number of years in their own way and might experience movies differently. So I hope that you enjoyed whatever movies you enjoyed your way, authentically to yourself, as I do mine. Before we get into the actual 24, these are a few honorable mentions of movies I think are worth noting, but didn't clear my necessary top of the year list. We Live in Time, a delight, definitely worth discussing. I believe Carry On is slept on because of the medium it was released. If it got released in theaters, I think it would be talked about much more, though it is breaking records on said medium. I think The Idea of You is absolutely precious. I love a good rom-com. Really, really enjoyed it. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes damn near made my top 24. Just barely missed the mark. I think it is exemplary. I think it's a very, very stunning bit of cinema, but I won't find myself rewatching it often, so I couldn't go any higher. Monkey Man, likewise, is an absolute, look at that pair. Monkey Man and Apes. Monkey Man, I think, is incredible in a lot of its imagery and the fight choreography, and much like John Wick, I really enjoyed the experience of it. I was riveted, but won't watch it very, very often. Next up, we've got Fly Me to the Moon. I'm clearly a sucker for a rom-com. This movie isn't anything, changing cinema, but it is a really cool use of historical drama mixed with rom-com that makes it unique in both of those contexts and well worth the watch. I also really enjoyed Blink Twice as a psychological thriller. It is a bit heavy for me to rewatch often, but a really great debut from Zoe Kravitz, a great directorial debut. I love the use of color in this film. It is very vibrant and lush in a way we don't see a lot of anymore, and Channing Tatum playing against type, also really incredible performance there. We've then got My Old Ass, a movie I really enjoyed. I laughed a lot. I belly laughed a lot. It is so close. I think this is number 26 of the year. And then the last of my honorable mentions, Challengers, I really, really enjoyed. But I think by the time I saw it, a lot of people had been like, it is the erotic thriller we don't make anymore. And it felt a lot like a PG-14. It sure was almost that. And I really love Zendaya's performance. I really think she's incredible. The two of these dudes, dude, good for them. Like, man, doing the work. They're awesome. But it wasn't quite what I had heard. So this one's tricky because I really enjoyed it, but it's 25 for a reason, not top 24. And then we've got our first of the top 24 films of 2024, and this one is kind of the inverse. I hadn't heard a lot about this, and then I loved it. A Quiet Place Day One is set within one of my favorite horror universes. I think the first two Quiet Places are genius. I was so worried about this movie. I put it in my most anticipated of the year, but I was worried up until it came out because it's a new director on John Krasinski's baby. He wrote and directed and starred in those. Who is going to do a good job taking it over? I tell you what, this movie, directed by Michael Sarnowski, who has done such great things like Pig and Rings and a bunch of indies, but Pig is so emotionally like, whoa, that I was like, all right, let's give it a chance. This is, instead of being as much a thriller that uses horror tropes, it is a thriller that uses drama tropes. It is a dramatic experience. The acting in this is amazing. Lupita Nyong'o is always incredible. We're getting more and more of, I am slipping on his name because I'm getting all of this very, very quickly. Man, oh man, dude, Joseph Quinn. There we go. Joseph Quinn. I had to see his face bigger. Joseph Quinn is so good in this, and I really think it is emotionally draining in a way that is so important, and it's about the joy of life and living and surviving, and it is a beautiful story set within a horrific universe that I really, really appreciated. 23 is kind of the antithesis of what I was saying about Challengers. I loved how sexy this movie was. Babygirl is number 23. 23 is kind of low for this movie in like how much I think I'll think about it, but I also don't think I'll rewatch it very often. I think that the performances are amazing. I think that it is so captivating and enthralling and wonderful, and you don't know what character is going to do next. I love the ambition. I love the power play between these two. I love that I genuinely thought in the performances one of them was in real life overpowering the other. I don't know how these two actors trained for this or rehearsed for this, but boy oh boy is it sexy. I love that we have Antonio Banderas playing against type and then subverting expectations as well into the third act. I really think this dude Harris Dixon is going to be a household name. I'm excited to see what he does next. Keeping up with Nicole Kidman in her absolute year of cougardom between this and Zac Efron. I love that we got 3 movies, at least, maybe 4. There's the Nicole Kidman, Zac Efron, there's this one, and then there's the Anne Hathaway one, which is in my honorable mention, where it's like this power structure thing, but in 3 very different fun ways. I think it's a fun trope that we're playing with. Babygirl, delightful. Love the futurism of it. I love the automation conversation in addition to all of the espionage of sexuality used in this film. It is a fascinating journey. 23, Babygirl. All right, 22 is immediately going to be controversial. This is my hill to die on 2024. This is a movie that I really enjoyed, that I belly laughed through, that I was captivated by, that I thought the mythology was fun, that the action was great, that is some of the things I like about Marvel movies that people are going to use as an insult. This is the Marvelized version of Christmas. It is Red One, and you know what? I enjoyed the hell out of it. This is 22. This makes my top 24 of the year with a pencil, inked in pen, with a period. I thought about it. I processed it. I loved it. I think Chris Evans doing his post Captain America, playing, a Johnny Storm / Knives Out character is a really good way for people to adjust, let Chris be from Boston again. Does that well here. I think everybody talks about Dwayne Johnson playing the same guy. This is the best use of that same guy. I'm excited for his A24 film, but while he's doing The Rock as The Rock, this is what I want to see. It's cheeky, it's self-aware, it's a blast. Lucy Liu, still killing it. Basically, the espionage evolution of her character from Charlie's Angels. Wonderful to see. I loved seeing some mythology with Krampus. I love seeing the old myths of the world around Christmas in a really fun way. And the icing on the cake, J.K. Simmons. Put him in everything. And it's also kind of like a spiritual sequel to Klaus by having J.K. Simmons as Santa. Really enjoyed. The reason, by the way, I'm holding up posters is I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to edit this because it is literally the 30th of December. I didn't want to work the 3 days of like New Year's, but here I am, so I wanted to maybe not edit this. We'll see if I edit it. You guys, if you are seeing this, it means I didn't edit it, because I'm going to edit this out, future me. But if I did, here are the posters. That way you know what movie I'm talking about. All right, so that was 22. This is number 21, and it's a lot of people's top 10. A lot of people are talking about it for best of the year. It's up for best picture as far as a lot of people's shortlists. We'll see in a few weeks if it gets nominated, but I really, really enjoyed it. It is very, very tense but hilarious in a unique way. Anora, I thought, used tension and the release of diaphragm in a really fun way. A lot of thrillers use that diaphragm release to break tension by like having a jump or having a cut to something calm. This uses humor. Like, crying and laughing are the same muscles, and I think it's really interesting when a movie can use those in manipulative ways. And I think this movie uses humor in really fun ways where situations shouldn't be funny but become funny because you're so tense. I think she is amazing. I think she is a star. I think she's going to be a household name. I think Mikey Madison really showed us her range and her, the dedication, but also her likability in this movie, and I think that's a huge part of being a movie star. I'm really excited to see her in other things. I think the supporting actors were great. I think the story itself was captivating and not something we see very often. I think it's a very beautiful indie film that got a lot of notice, deservedly. I'm very excited to see where this whole team goes next, and I think Sean Baker, who is kind of an indie darling with Florida Project, Tangerine and stuff, is going to be more and more of a household name thanks to this film getting this giant push, and I think it's well deserved. So that is 21. Coming in at number 20 is a movie that I really, really love because I am a sucker for this whole genre. 80s action thrillers are my jam, and when you can recreate them and still keep that integrity of like zingers that work in universe but also like are memorable, that's my favorite genre. It is Rebel Ridge. I love, love, love this movie's action. I love its dialogue. I love how smart it makes some of the characters. I love how much you hate the villain. I love that it made a movie star out of Aaron Pierre. I love that it basically feels like a Jon Stewart audition tape because this is a lantern. This is an action star. This is a movie star. I really, really enjoy getting to see a movie that I would have seen a decade ago modernized in a way that doesn't feel like it's using nostalgia as a crutch. It's using nostalgia as a way to bring back a genre that I want more of, which is action comedies. This to me is in the vein of your Lethal Weapon, your Die Hard, your obviously Rambo. This movie is like a remake of Rambo, but for a modern audience. And I saw someone, I think it was Stephen King, someone described it as like a thinking man's Rambo. Rambo's a thinking man's Rambo. This is a modern take on a thinking man's Rambo, which is Rambo. Like, Rambo was already ahead of its time, and that's impressive. I think Rambo's amazing. It's actually much better than I would have thought had I not seen it. I didn't see it until like 2 years ago. This movie is the 2024 take on that. I think it's a very important conversation about absolute power corrupting absolutely. I think it's a very important conversation about certain systems that don't work, and I think it's also an incredible star-making performance. All those things wrapped in great action, great dialogue, a blast to watch. Really loved Rebel Ridge. It is my number 20 of 2024. Coming in at number 19, we've got one of my biggest surprises of the year, Transformers 1. This movie was so much fun in theaters. This movie was a great buddy cop duo. This movie was an origin of Transformers that I didn't think we needed because everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people knows the gist, but it gets deeper into that. It gets into like caring about them much more than I would have expected as individual characters and as what the import of what they're doing is. It's also a beautiful story about like labor loss. It deals with how important it is to stand up for yourself and what it is to be a sentient being, but while using Transformers. I think it's a great message for kids. I think standing up for yourself is something that should be taught at the earliest age possible, so doing a younger skewing Transformers is that. I think it's a great story about Optimus and obviously the birth of the Decepticons. We see Optimus form, but we also see the Decepticons take on the mantle of Decepticons. We see what it is to embody these characters in an origin way that feels very much like, I don't know, like a superhero origin in the comic books, where it takes its time, but it's still action-packed and fun. The special effects are stunning. The world built is amazing. I think it uses texture so well because the metal nature of these characters, obviously, the Transformers, is a strength in that everything looks amazing because there is no human texture to throw it off. I really, really loved it. I think it was the best Transformers movie we've gotten to date, and I think it is the love letter to the original Transformers we've needed as, you know, the 80s nostalgia is hitting its peak. Next up, we've got Hitman. Hitman is a delight. This is Richard Linklater, one of my favorite directors working, doing an action movie, but the dialogue is a lot of the action. It's shot at points like an action movie, but using dialogue. There's this great scene with a cell phone that is literally blocked like it's an action scene. It might as well have a gun in it, but instead of a gun, it's dialogue and a phone. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. Adria Arjona is so captivating, so wonderful. Such a like starlet lead, but with like integrity and character. Like they wrote her well while also being the trope of the genre. It's like this is your thinking man's action thriller, and it's all based largely on the shoulders of the charisma and charm of Glenn Powell. He's had an incredible year, and man oh man was this well deserved as a, like I said, star-making performance, but he's already a star. Like, they just let him be the Tom Cruise of today and let a movie, you know, rotate around him, play 20 roles by the nature of the story. It's fun, it's charming, it's an easy watch, and it's Richard Linklater doing what he does best, which is make you comfortable in a world and like you're just watching, and then Glenn Powell charming as ever, and Adria Arjona being as charming as ever, and not knowing which direction your character is going to go. It is so much fun. Really, really enjoyed Hitman. Then we've got at number, I believe, 18, a likely Best Picture nominee, if not Best Picture winner. I think likely Best Actor nominee, if not Best Actor winner, a complete unknown with Timothée Chalamet. Not only is his press tour around this an absolute delight, but this movie is a blast. The 3 hours do not feel like more than 2. This movie flies by at a click. You're aware of the biopic tropes, but it's using them as a strength. It actually does a lot of the biopic tropes, I think, better than ones that have come before it, because you're way more invested in certain concerts. You're way more enthralled by the story, even if you know it. And if you don't know it, you get to learn so much about one of the most important voices in folk, one of the most important voices in American music, one of the most interesting changes in musical stylings is the conflict in this film more than any human conflict. I like that the conflict is man versus self, but also man versus society in a really unique way to Dylan. The movie feels like poetry. James Mangold is always so good at making you care about things that didn't happen to you like they did happen to you, and I think this movie does that very well. I think the cast is fantastic. Edward Norton, one of the best actors alive, and he is so well utilized here. I love Scoot McNairy, and he's got a delightful role here as a very important folk star as well. I honestly think this will be one of the great biopics when we look back at the last decade. I also think, honestly, this, along with a couple more movies on the list, will be like, oh, what did 2024 have? This will be included. I think a certain other musical will be included. I think a certain other sci-fi epic that are both in my part 2 video are going to be like, 2024 brought us these, and I think A Complete Unknown is absolutely one of those on the list of 2024 brought us these. Now we go from that to a complete different movie. I think this movie is is for me specifically. I think this movie was something that I enjoyed that people are not going to agree with. This is the Red One Part 2. And it is a movie that I had an absolute blast with that I want to watch right now. It is Roadhouse. Roadhouse is incredible. Roadhouse, directed by Doug Liman, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor, and they just let Conor McGregor be Conor McGregor, and Jake Gyllenhaal is not trying to play Swayze, which was the best movie they could have done. He's like honoring some of the Swayze elements of the character, but he's not playing Swayze at all, which is great. He's playing Jake Gyllenhaal's take on cool. He's playing the 2024 take on cool guy, as Swayze played the coolest guy of the 80s. This is amazing. I think Conor McGregor, as a heavy, his personal stuff notwithstanding, is an incredible choice to just let him be the Tasmanian devil, cutting in and out of this movie like Jaws. He is so fascinating to just like watch untethered. And then Jake Gyllenhaal, the opposite. It's like kind of a comedy trope where you have the straight man and the big slapstick character. It's like that, but action. You've got the straight man in Jake Gyllenhaal's calm, cool, and collected, and the bombastic insanity of Conor McGregor, but again, action versus the traditional just comedy. That said, the comedy in this is wicked funny. The action is fantastic. You've got one of the best fighters alive, actually fighting in a movie way and learning to, not actually hit Jake. And Jake Gyllenhaal, one of the best movie fighters. Like, Southpaw is so good. He's been in action for decades. It's the best of all worlds. I really, really enjoyed it. I really, honestly, like, what this movie actually was surprised me so much, because I knew I'd enjoy it, but I didn't think it would make my top of the year. Billy Magnuson as the comedic villain on top of Connor's Tasmanian devil. Daniela Melcher, oh my God. She's so interesting and so... such a great foible to the cool, because Jake Gyllenhaal's like, his Dalton breaks a little with her, and you can totally see why. Jessica Williams, what a great way to subvert the traditional bar owner trope. I really just, Roadhouse. Really enjoyed that movie quite a bit. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 coming in at number 15 is another of my biggest surprises of the year. I was actually worried about this movie all year. I did not necessarily want to see it because I was afraid of reviewing it, and it was too big of a movie for me to avoid. And then I was like, man, I'm going to have to explain to people that musicals aren't my thing and that the movie is good or not, but it was never made for me. And instead, it made me love it. It was so good and so captivating. It was counter-programming. Wicked got me to understand the entire genre of musicals better. My usual problem with musicals is by the time someone sings, it is so absurd to me. I was like, why would they just start singing? This movie shows me the idea of, and actually succeeds at showing me the idea of, if the world is so big, the only response is breaking into song. It's the only thing you can do to go bigger. And I've heard that idea posited. I've been told that's musicals. I've never felt it, or not often. I felt it in Les Mis. I felt it here. This, to me, is the Technicolor dream version of what a musical can be. This is everything is so big, songs fit, and the songs are performed so very well. The musical talent on display here is astounding. The songwriting is absolutely mesmeric. The visuals are mostly absolutely stunning. There are visuals that keep it out of being in the top 12. It's 15 for some of the odd choices of backlighting, some of the weird center framing, some of the things that feel like a 2024 movie. Can't put it any higher. Doesn't feel like every visual is as loved as some, but it does feel immediately impactful. This movie is an immediate classic. I think this movie will be talked about for 20, 30, 40 years. I think these performances will absolutely be discussed. I think it is every bit the musical that I've heard it to be, and I actually got it. It convinced me. It showed me what a musical can be, and it did it while being an absolute blast. I think the joy in this movie cannot be overstated. I think Cynthia and Ariana deserve the Oscar love that I think they're going to get. Jonathan Bailey, I was not aware of until this. He came in there like Captain Kirk meets I should specify which Captain Kirk. I wasn't even thinking the one everyone else was, not Shatner. I was thinking he's like Chris Pine, but like by way of pirate, but musically. He's so captivating and interesting. Jeff Goldblum is so interesting. And that word I'm using really positively for Bailey and mostly positively for Goldblum. He is definitely playing Goldblum, but I think it works to make the wizard the Goldblum trope. I had a great time. Guys, Wicked is counter-programming. It's not made for me at all, and yet it got me. It taught me what musicals can be. I was enthralled top to bottom. What a good time. Number 15, Wicked. Number 14, the opposite budget. One of the biggest budgets of the year in Wicked to one of the smallest budgets of the year for a main, full release film. I'm sure plenty of movies are made for $17, but this theatrical release film shows the power of shooting on a small budget because it is so inventive, it is so fascinating, it is so captivating, and it plays with expectations. The movie, Strange Darling. This whole movie is about what you're expecting to happen next. It's about what your expectations of the character are. It's about what you think someone will do in a situation, which is a lot of good psychological thrillers. This one does that and throws in a chronological twist element where it uses chronology like Memento, like Tarantino, like a lot of great auteur directors like this director is, but in a new way that I will not discuss further because you need to see it. It is so awesome and so fascinating, and it kept you guessing throughout the journey of the film. It is such an incredible performance by Kyle Gallner, and I did not know her until this movie, but Willa Fitzgerald, I'll be watching anything she does. She is so, I used the word mesmeric before. She is mesmeric as an actress. She is, you want to know everything about her character. You want to know what they had for breakfast. You want to know why she made this decision. You are fascinated, and even when she does things that feel off character, you get explained to them through body language or auditory cues. She's fascinating. I really enjoyed her. Great role from Ed Begley Jr. as well. Is probably the biggest star in the film next to Kyle Gallner. I hadn't seen Kyle Gallner in a bunch of stuff in like a decade, and since then I've been like, gotta follow this guy's work. He is fascinating. The movie is amazing. The director, what is his last name? Molnar. JT Molnar, I'll be watching anything he does. JT Molnar immediately made a fan out of me, and I really think this movie should be on everyone's must-watch list. It is very high. Like I said, I saw over 180 movies this year, and coming in at number 14 out of well over 180, in the top like 5% of the movies I saw this year, is a indie psychological thriller that I could not recommend more. Strange Darling. Seek it out. Highly recommend. All right, from 14 to 13, a movie that is also high on my list that might not be as high on others. This movie feels like it was made for me. This is a love letter to Kerouac and Hunter S. Thompson. It is an Americana folktale. It is The Bikeriders. I love when Americana mythology can be a character. This isn't history. This isn't myth. It is this perfect middle thing, this bit of Americana that feels like it might as well be about Paul Bunyan or Johnny Appleseed, but in the 50s, and about the 50s Americana as a concept. And it's about dudes not making good decisions, but loving being dudes. And I really like that it's told from a female protagonist perspective. So you're watching as a woman going, why would these guys do that? And yet they continue to do it. And then also as a guy, like me personally, going, yeah, that makes sense. It's really fascinating, the journey it takes you on as a viewer, especially if you're a dude. And I used to ride motorcycles. I loved my Ducati. I had a Ducati that I lived my first 7 years in Los Angeles on exclusively a bike. I didn't have a car. So it rains in LA. I got wet. When it was insane cold or hot, I was hot or cold. I got my groceries on the bike. I got every single thing I've ever brought into my first 7 years in LA on a motorcycle. It's not easy, but it's a fascinating way to live, and it's so free. Like, the freedom in motorcycle is like nothing you'll ever experience unless you learn to ride one. What a road feels like, what a community feels like, what the danger feels like, what the adrenaline feels like. I still get claustrophobic to this day because of the freedom of a motorcycle. This movie captures that feeling. It has amazing performances from Austin Butler, from the cast. I want to read through real quick. Austin Butler, movie star, we all know it. Jodie Comer is so slept on. The Last Duel movie should have gotten more love. She is fascinating in it. Tom Hardy is a hurricane. Tom Hardy in this movie is a dog in a corner that's trying to get out, and he's trying to navigate what a civilized world is, and he's fascinating. It's like Sin City, like a guy born at the wrong time. And in the 50s, he was a little more free. This guy, I love what Tom Hardy brings to this role. Michael Shannon, I'll see anything the guy does ever. Boyd Holbrook is... Man, I love him with James Mangold. I love him in anything. He's also so good in A Complete Unknown. Boyd Holbrook is charm. Mike Feist is so captivating as the journalist. I really honestly think everyone in this top to bottom, Bo Knapp, Damon Harriman, a lot of like Norman Reedus, a lot of that guys getting their time to shine in a movie that is directed by Mike Nichols in a slice of Americana folklore. I loved this movie. It is my number 12 of the year. It's a Hells Angels story adjacent. I love Hunter S. Thompson's journey with the Hells Angels, his time with the Hells Angels, how much it impacted me in literature. This feels like a great novel. It's more of a feeling than a movie, and that's very cheesy to say, but it's how I felt and still feel. Love Bikeriders. Coming in at number 11, we are almost done. Sorry, that was 13. This is 12, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is number 12. Coming in at number 12, and I am shocked at how good this movie was considering how the franchise meandered. Alien Romulus. This is an 80s horror movie today. It's got film grain, it's got grit, it's got practical sets, it's got practical monsters. It feels like the actors are from the 80s. This movie does everything you want in a continuation of the franchise. At long last, we have an Alien 3. I love David Fincher. I think that Joss Whedon writes the hell out of some scripts, but man, Alien 3 and 4 were not for me. Alien v Predator feels like its own thing. Prometheus is its own thing. This, to me, feels like the trilogy is complete with Alien Romulus. The actors in this are all must-watches now. I'm going to be following their careers. There's another movie later on my list with the incredible Kaylee Spenny later on near the top of my list. Kaylee Spenny had a great year with 2 of my favorite movies of the year. David Johnson in this as Andy is I say force of nature, but it's more subdued than that, and then it becomes a force of nature. So he's one of those lean in, almost like a stage play actors, then lean out at the scope of his movie stardom in this as one role with 2 incredible performances. He's amazing. Isabella Merced is in everything for a reason. Everyone in this is going to be everywhere, deservedly so. This is going to be one of those movies people look back on like, oh, they were in that? Because everyone is going to be a giant star out of it, and it's deserved. This plays with xenomorph lore, it plays with mythology, it plays with a lot of sci-fi tropes, but specifically within the world of Wayland, it is a fascinating evolution of some of the things we know about these characters. It reinvents a lot of xenomorph lore, but I think in a positive way. It uses action so well. There's this almost like stop-go sequence, and there's anti-gravity sequences. There's so many great uses of sci-fi, and then the third act, as you think the movie couldn't get any scarier, more intense, the third act accelerates, and all of a sudden you're like, there's still 30 more minutes because things shift and things accelerate at the end. I don't want to give it away, but holy crap, what a third act to a crazy film. Really loved Alien Romulus. And my final film on this video, number 11, because I'm going to do my top 10 in part 2, which is going to be dropping very, very soon. Number 11, one of the funniest movies I've seen in years. I do find I don't like comedies as much as other genres that are pure comedy. I tend to like comedy thrillers, comedy dramas. I tend to like dark comedy. But for a full-on, straight-up comedy, one of my favorite comedies in years, Saturday Night. Saturday Night, I knew I'd like, because I'm usually a very big fan of Reitman. I think Reitman, the second Reitman, but I think Reitman is so good with Juno and Up in the Air and a lot of his stuff, but his last few movies haven't hit me as much as his first few movies. This one might be my favorite Reitman ever. This and Juno. This is what it feels like to be in Hell Week on a play. This is what it feels like to be. I did Rocky Horror in LA for years. I did plays in high school, and this brought back all of that. Like, oh my God. that energy, that kinetic chaos, that adrenaline in a positive and negative way. This brings you all that. And what I love most about this movie is that it is all legends. Everyone in this movie, in the real story, has become forces of nature. I'm bringing that term back. In comedy, whether it's Chevy Chase, whether it's the incredibly dynamic use of what we got out of Dan Aykroyd in mainstream, and them casting, to me, against type with Dylan O'Brien shows me how versatile Dylan O'Brien is and how much I've misread young Dan Aykroyd. What it did using, I think personally, the best possible John Belushi and Matt Wood, showing a new generation the animosity, intensity, and comedic uniqueness of Belushi. Matt Wood, by the way, my Wolverine now. But yeah, this cast, Lamorne Morris is so funny in this, but the whole thing anchored on Gabriel LaBelle, a dude I've seen in a few things. He was in that Spielberg movie. He's in stuff. Like, he's one of those faces you've seen in things. He was in Snack Shack, The Predator, The Fabelmans is probably his biggest thing, but he is so anchored to the legacy as Lorne Michaels here that without his performance, this movie would have fallen apart. And he is so funny, which I think is some creative liberties I'm not sure I've ever thought of. I've thought of Lorne Michaels as a good businessman because he kept SNL somehow going all these years, but never would have thought of him as funny, but he must be because he finds comedy. What he brings to this role is fantastic. What I think the strength of the movie is that Corey Michael Smith isn't doing a Chevy Chase impersonation. He's taking the elements that make Chevy Chase unique and applying them to himself. What I think Dylan O'Brien does as Dan Aykroyd is not like a caricature, it's adding elements and blending himself into Dan Aykroyd's persona. All of these actors, whether it's Nicholas Braun playing both Jim Henson and Kaufman masterfully, do is they bring themselves to the icons. And there's a few scenes with Billy Crystal that I'm like, I can feel that as Billy Crystal. Looks not as much like Billy Crystal as I see Billy Crystal, but the energy of each and every one of these legends is absolutely alive on stage. And that's what Saturday Night is about. And that is what this movie's about. That is what SNL feels like. That is what the energy of being in a play feels like. This feels like one nonstop thrill ride for 100 minutes or so. Highly recommend it. I want more people to be talking about it. It is my number 11 of the year and my final of my part 2 favorite movies of 2024. Gonna be doing a top 10 very soon. I hope you're there. I hope you check it out. Really love all those movies. What array of just different types of genres we got this year. To recap really quick, at number 11, we got Saturday Night. At number 12, we got Alien Romulus. 13, The Bikeriders. 14, Strange Darling. 15, Wicked. 16, Roadhouse. 17, A Complete Unknown. 18, Hitman. 19, Transformers 1. 20, Rebel Ridge. 21, Anora. 22, Red One. 23, Babygirl. And 24, A Quiet Place Day One. Those movies could not be more different. What a journey in cinema. That is the magic of movies, is they are so different and bring out such different emotion. What a year at the movies. I got my top 10 coming at you. If you think I missed something from not the top 10, let me know in the comments below. If you think a movie that I'm going to put in my top 10 is wrong, respectfully, leave it in the comments below. I'm really curious what you guys think is coming in that next video. Let me know what you thought of the movies in this video. Is there anything that you weren't going to see that now you want to? Is there anything you hadn't heard of that I brought to your awareness? Let me know in those comments. Please leave a like on your way out. And if you're not subscribed already, let's get to 50K. We passed 40. I'm so very proud. Please subscribe, like, comment. Please go watch some movies and enjoy them. It's so much more fun to enjoy stuff. All right, watch the movies. Much love. I'll see you guys for part 2, my top 10 in 2024, very soon. Bye.